Cambodia are you expecting to see? Maybe this one? Or maybe this one? Or maybe you're hoping to see this one. Well, the fact that this is an amazing country.
These niggas all square like Irvin. Yeah, we grew up in the hood, no suburbans. If I say I need my money, then it's urgent. Yeah, they want me to quit. Yeah, they want me to shift.
There is so much going on. Cambodia truly is one of the most paradoxical countries in the world. At one point, it was one of the most advanced civilizations in the world. This was like the New York of the 12th century. But then things took a turn for the worse, and the country became so impoverished that they would sell children for $1.
This is about the fact that kids from Cambodia were sold to different countries.
Cambodia is an example of the fact that it doesn't matter how developed a nation's science, art, and technology might be. I mean, take a look at this piece of art. The impressive thing is that it was made in the 12th century. And if we look more closely, we can get some clues about how it was made. All of this beauty can collapse and turn into hell. They didn't shoot any guns. They didn't waste their bullets. They used their axes and their sticks. But mostly, their weapon of choice was the hoe. In Cambodia, it feels like everything's the other way around. Here, crime and corruption are good for the economy. So, Cambodia is like the Wild West.
Cambodia is like the Wild West, but it's actually the safest place I've ever lived. You know, there's very little crime, there's no cameras everywhere, the police clock off at 5 p.m.
You know, there's a very good phrase here, yum yum means to eat, and yum yum is also a bribe.
Charitable foundations often steal and kill.
You have a normal life for a year.
My friends, this is a story that will challenge every belief you've ever had about who to believe and who not to believe, and what is good and evil. This is a place where gangsters can suddenly become saviors, and I'm going to tell you the incredible story of an American gangster who went by the name of KK.
We eventually became a gangster to protect our people and to protect our surroundings, you see.
He has saved hundreds and maybe even thousands of people, and does so to this day.
It doesn't matter how hard of a gangster you are. If you're an asshole, everywhere you go, you're just gonna have trouble. Or get into trouble. But if you're always a nice person and you know you respect people, the people will love you, you know, for who you are. And
They tried to count me out. I'ma gon' count me in. Fill up my bank account. Now I got something to spend.
In this country, you really get the feeling that everything is not what it seems. Historically, there are a lot of mysteries. Over here, education can breed ignorance and war can save lives. And where human rights organizations can, well, they can traffic children, and the gangsters can save the children. Guys, today Cambodia is in a condition that I promise you have never seen before.
She want me to lock it down, but I told her to pass the key. You gotta slow it down, girl, you moving too fast for me.
Counted the money, okay. Might buy a crib with a view in LA. Niggas keep plotting, they want me to break down.
this is my neighborhood, and I know it's almost everyone. People here are afraid to come here. No light, no water, and you will have to be careful with your camera. There was nothing here.
KK takes me to one of the most dangerous parts of Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. There are dirt roads here, even though it's not too far from the center. But in addition to some very cheap motorbikes and carts, expensive SUVs are already being driven here. They have become the main symbol of Cambodia in the last few years.
Well, there was nothing here.
Wow, and when did everything start to change, huh?
About 5 years.
5 years ago.
Yeah,
So, quite recently.
yeah. This is where my house used to be.
I see.
And now we have these big houses. It wasn't always like this. It was ghetto. The police station used to be right there, and
Right here, there was a police station?
yeah, they shut it down. And then all of this was water.
Uh-huh.
I would come fishing here.
You've probably noticed that KK speaks with an American accent, and that's no coincidence, because he spent 30 years living in Los Angeles. And he was part of one of the toughest gangs on the west coast of the United States.
I ended up growing up on Long Beach. Long Beach, there's a lot of gangs out there, and it was different how the government set it up for people coming from Cambodia. Black people were black, Mexican people were Mexican, and Cambodian people were really pressured by blacks, by Mexicans, and then we ended up forming our own gangs, protecting our community and our people, and that's how I became a gangster.
His story is so incredible that, at first, I didn't believe it until I read an article in the New York Times. The son of Cambodian refugees and a breakdancer, he became part of the Crips gang, which had members such as Snoop Dogg, Lil Wayne, and many other American rappers at some point. He got arrested for robbery, and then it turned out that his refugee parents didn't qualify him for US citizenship.
It was the 90s, and back then we shot a lot. There were stabbings and robberies. Yeah, that's how it was.
Tell me, did you have parents with citizenship?
No, they never had that. Not when I was a kid.
Why?
They didn't know anything about it. I mean, they didn't know any English. They can't even speak the language. They didn't even know.
And after another term, he was deported to Cambodia, where he had neither any relatives or a home.
It's been reported that an immigrant who was released from prison on bail just last week has been deported to Cambodia.
When I got deported, I was cuffed up and banged, and they put a hood over my head and everything, It's about 12 of us on a plane, and, private jet, American Marshals, they were flying us out here.
So you're flying on a private plane.
Private, yes. Private jet, in handcuffs.
Private plane home is a dream for most.
Yeah.
KK was only one of the many thousands of Cambodian immigrants who started being deported from the USA in the early 2000s. At the time in which America, a law had been passed which stated that any person in the country's borders without citizenship, even if they were born there, should be removed from the country if they committed a crime. The problem is that there are millions of people who meet the criteria living in the USA, refugees and their children. At that time, one of the bloodiest gangs from Latin America appeared, El Salvador's Mara Salvatrucho, and they made themselves known. When the American government started sending Salvadorian immigrants who had been imprisoned back home to Cambodia in quite a short period of time, more than 1,500 criminals were deported, something that the Americans are still doing. At that time, a civil war that had been tearing the country apart for 30 years had just ended. Cities were in pieces, people were starving, the streets were full of homeless children.
Yeah. I was scared. I was really scared at first. I called my mom, crying, but my mom always told me, that she was always there for me. She will always guide me and help me and support me, and that made me feel less lonely. My mom and dad always believed in me from day one, so because of that, I said, I'll do my best. That's how I just got through everything.
There was practically no money, and KK settled in the poorest quarter of the city, a city that was poorer on the whole.
People thought of this as a ghost town, yeah. So they didn't want to come. Every time they would come here, they're like, oh, this is scary, it's dark here, it's weird. But it's really cheap. Now everybody who knows about it, they're like, oh man, we should have bought a whole plot of land here.
Now this ghetto is experiencing a construction boom. In Phnom Penh, developers have raised prices almost 5 times in the last half a decade. Phnom Penh is just the city of cranes these days. Wherever you look, this is a construction happening. I mean, just look at this. Everywhere you look, you just see the horns of cranes sticking up. We're going to see what they have in this parking lot. Mercedes, Toyota, another Mercedes, and over here, a Range Rover. Here we have a Maserati. Next to that is a Toyota. A little further down that way, I saw a Rolls-Royce. Here's the Maserati I mentioned. Look how cool that is. The Rolls-Royce is blue. Do you see how its nose sticks out? It is so beautiful. It's really beautiful. Look at that. And all of this, my friends, is just on one block of a normal street in the center of the city. The capital city of Cambodia, Phnom Penh. It makes you feel like you're not in Cambodia, but rather the United Arab Emirates, where the billionaire sheiks are moving around in their new Rolls-Royce and Maybachs.
Had to cut you off, you left me out for dead. Ever since I was a teen, prices on my head.
When you get to the capital of Cambodia, Phnom Penh, at first you'll think that you are at some kind of convention of millionaires in the slums. There are naturally expensive limousines and SUVs, all sharing the road with little tuk-tuks, and on the outskirts, mothers carry naked children around because they can't afford clothes for them. In parking lots, you can find Rolls-Royces parked right next to motorized tuk-tuks, and next to the Maserati, there will be a little cart whose driver will be sleeping in a homemade hammock. In addition, there are huge skyscrapers whose apartments start at $200,000, towering over the roofs of the shacks in the slums that don't even have sewage systems. Of course, we are going to be checking out both, but the contrast is just simply amazing. Phnom Penh truly looks like a beggar who suddenly inherited a massive fortune from a recently deceased American uncle. And that's not too far from the truth, but the uncle isn't American, but rather Chinese. And he did not die, he just decided to shower his relatives with money.
Here there are a lot of Cambodian people who have a lot of money. They like to use modern cars like toys, toys?
Seven sells elite cars in one of the largest elite dealerships in Phnom Penh. How many Maybachs did you sell this year?
This year, a lot.
A lot?
Yes, sir.
To make things clear, see what it looks like from above. Opposite the car dealership is some kind of dirty dump, and here's a construction site, and here they sell cars for millions of dollars.
That's not all. We have more. More modern, like Rolls-Royce, McLarens, a lot. Cambodia has a lot.
What luxury cars do Cambodians like the most? Maybachs or what? Range Rovers or Mercedes or perhaps a BMW?
BMW, and they like Rolls-Royces.
Look guys, these have just come off the floor. BMW, Volvo.
BMW, good.
At the same time, Cambodia is on the list of the poorest countries in Asia, according to the data from the Asian Development Bank. The average Cambodian needs to save for at least 20 years to be able to afford a car like this, and most of the people who buy them here are not locals.
We have a lot of Chinese people here. Yes, and Chinese people like their modern cars. And often, they buy these, and in 3 months, they already want a new one.
You said every 3 months?
Yes, about 3 months.
Wow.
They always want a new one. People see these cars as toys. They change cars like toys.
Can Cambodians afford cars like this, or is it only the Chinese or someone?
Cambodian people, they like Lexus. Lexus, Toyota.
Lexus. Yeah,
from Japan. Yeah, but rich people, usually from overseas, they like Mercedes and European cars. Yeah.
And they change their car every 3 months. Where do they get the money for it? I mean, what business are they even in?
Business.
In Cambodia, what business makes so much money?
I don't know. I don't know that.
The truth is that everyone knows that there are casinos that began to pop up in Cambodia like mushrooms after the rain. The country's gambling capital, Sihanoukville, is on the coast. It is a relatively small port city, which initially had a population of 70,000. But since 2019, there's been an influx of Chinese people, approximately 80,000 of them, turning the city into a Chinese enclave. And one massive construction site, casinos, hotels, and apartments for the visitors, the gambling business is interesting to Chinese entrepreneurs. Not just because of the gambling, it is also the most convenient way to launder and withdraw money. Since 2023, there have been arrests throughout Singapore. 10 people have been arrested, and mountains of cash have been confiscated. Luxury cars and expensive jewelry on top of that. But the most amazing thing was the amount of money that was laundered. At first, there was talk of hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's about $740 million.
And then it was more than $1 billion.
Assets tied to the account ballooned to 1.8 billion Sing dollars.
And then the amount went over $2 billion.
Hey Carl, good morning. Singapore authorities froze assets worth more than $2 billion in a money laundering case.
Let's go. What's it take? Let's go.
At the time of putting this together, the amount was already $3 billion, and when you look at it closely, we could actually be talking about tens of billions or even trillions of dollars. This case has become the largest investigation into money laundering in decades. Of the 10 people arrested, 9 were Chinese people who had Cambodian passports. If we simplify things, this is what the scheme looks like. The cash made its way from China to Cambodia, where it allegedly got mixed up in the casino system and then paid out as winnings. And because of this, illegal money suddenly became legal. But of course, that amount of money is sure to raise a few eyebrows. Therefore, lots of it was put into construction, which was then sold off. And because of this process, the money became legal, and then that money was used to buy expensive jewelry and luxury cars. And when that was sold, the sellers were given documents verifying a source of income. And this is the reason the Chinese in Cambodia buy Maybachs every 3 months. It is very convenient that in Cambodia, the official form of currency is the American dollar in parallel with the local real. In Cambodia, the dollar and the local real are on absolutely the same level. Dollars can be withdrawn from the ATMs, dollars can be used to buy things everywhere, and the real, my best explanation would be its cents. It is like basically the small change, so you will pay the majority of something with dollars. And then you use reals to make up the rest.
These niggas all square like Irvin. Yeah, we grew up in the hood, no suburbans. If I say I need my money, then it's urgent. Yeah, they want me to quit. Yeah, they want me to shift.
Strangely, people around here don't shout. But to an Asian person, raising your voice is the same as losing face. So it's a very rare thing, yeah, you see it happen sometimes. But not often, it's a very rare thing. Most of the time you'll see that whenever there's a dispute, it'll pass without any raised voices.
And are there fights? Do they ever fight?
No. I've never seen one. If they fight, it's very rare. And that's because they have something here called bakator, like boxing. And I can tell you that it's very tough, unlike Thai boxing, because the fighters are allowed to use almost any technique, and they break bones and they break arms and legs and hips. That's why people don't fight here. They don't want to kill anybody. They can, but they prefer not to.
So then it's normal, I guess. Nikolai came to live in Asia more than 10 years ago.
I got a very bad injury. I broke my spine and ended up in hospital. And the doctors told me that there was no chance I would ever walk again. But I pulled myself together, and then they told me that I only had a year of normal life. And since I only had a year left, I decided to come to Asia. And the first place I went to was Thailand in 2011. I wanted to spend my final year there. And then a year passed, and 2 and 3, and nothing happened. I'm still here. Sure, I can't lift heavy things, I can't run, I can't jump, but I'm still walking around.
But hang on, did you rehabilitate yourself here, or did you get treatment?
No.
Or is it just that when the doctors gave you the prognosis, they got it totally wrong?
Well, the thing is, yeah, apparently they thought that people don't often recover from this type of injury. And they think that one day, you can't live a normal life anymore. People drink themselves to death, they get into drugs because the pain is too much for them. And I just forgot about it. Because I have a metal structure attached to my spine, and it holds everything together.
Now he has several businesses in Cambodia, and he consults with other entrepreneurs. Running a business in Cambodia, is it hard?
Yeah, running a business in Cambodia can be quite a challenge. There is sometimes a tinge of nationalism. Sometimes people don't want to work with you if you're in a business of selling products that are not Cambodian. They say that they will only help and develop local businesses. For example...
So then what about the Chinese? The Chinese seem to build casinos and clothes made by the Chinese, not so?
That's a completely different game because that's operating on a political level.
For the last 5 years, a lot of Chinese money has been flowing through the country. It's coming in like a flooded river. Apparently things are getting more expensive, is that right?
No, not at all. Not at all. The prices of supermarket products have not risen at all, and we talk about street food. Those prices have also stayed at the same level. The exchange rate against the dollar of the local real, this is around 4,050. If we take the official bank rate, that's what $1 is worth. And it's not changed for 20 years. Which means that things have stayed stable for the last 2 decades.
Ten years ago, they started to build a gold building in the business center over there, far away. It's almost invisible, but it was the first high-rise in the city. And the last 10 years, look at everything they've built.
Crispin moved from China to Cambodia just as the property boom was really kicking off.
It cost $300,000.
$300,000?
$300,000, yeah. They bring cash and get a fully furnished apartment in a high-rise building. A lot of Chinese people live in this building. And because of them, prices for apartments here have gone up at least $300,000. And if you want to rent, it's $150 a night. And the real estate prices stay at that level all year round, so it's a really good investment.
Under this great investment, you can still find slums.
This is the center of Phnom Penh where the memories of Khmer Rouge still hang heavy.
People here live in cellars, often without even basic sewerage. They go to the toilet on the balcony.
Look
what
up
is
there,
it?
he's pissing.
He's pissing there? Wow, at least it didn't hit me. Did
No,
any
it
of it
didn't
hit you?
me. Did you see how he was standing up?
Guys, if you ever come to Phnom Penh, you have to be careful, because someone might piss on your head from a balcony. So is there no sewage system here?
Huh?
Don't they have any sewage system?
Even if there was, I don't think the Khmer's would have a problem going to the toilet in the fresh air like this.
Hang on. You mean from the balcony, right?
That's right. They're not worried.
I must say, this is a great construction job. I mean, this doesn't look like a building in a slum. If it wasn't so shabby, run down, and old, it would be luxurious. I genuinely think that this would be a gorgeous house. I could see myself living here.
At the beginning of the 20th century, these houses were built by the French. These were the houses built for the elite, and this was the center.
You know, it reminds me a lot of Cuba. In Havana, they have the same kinds of houses. Basically ancient palaces that were turned into communal housing and left to ruin. As with the Cuban palaces and villas, the inhabitants of these old French houses were thrown out in literally a single day. To be more accurate, in 4 hours. Here you can see them running away with just their children and whatever they could grab. This is the 17th of April, 1975, when the country was taken over by the organization known as the Khmer Rouge. It was the most terrible regime the 20th century ever saw, and we'll dive deeper in this episode. They ordered the capital city to be completely removed of people. They just kicked everybody out and ordered them to work in the fields. And then they took these houses for themselves. And then, when the Khmer Rouge fell, they were completely emptied again and inhabited by people from the villages who were running from hunger. This would be the perfect location to shoot some kind of horror movie, right?
Someone made dinner here recently.
Yeah, look at this, guys. We have a pot of coals. So someone made themselves some food right here on this landing. I hope it was good. It feels like I'm in some kind of dark catacomb.
This is where some of the poorest people around here live, as well as a lot of heavy criminal elements. And it is really easy to feel the energy that hangs around these people.
Especially when they look out of their windows every day and see these luxurious skyscrapers the foreigners are building. When you rent an apartment here, you can use all of this space?
All of this is included in the maintenance fee. You pay $1.50 per square meter. And you can use everything in that apartment for free. You can have a meeting or a party, just call and you can get a room.
Here's the outside area, where you can have a barbecue. A huge table, But the most important thing, guys, is the view. The whole Phnom Penh. And downstairs, there are communal slums. Look at this, guys. This is something like a communal kitchen for the whole place. As far as I understand, this kitchen is for the whole floor and it's completely free to use. This is a kitchen in a communal slum. And there should be the toilet. And look over here, someone is sleeping on the balcony. And if I'm right, this is his entire living space. His bed. And here, people leave their clothes to dry right in the open. So this entire space is like one massive communal apartment for everyone. Here we have a Toyota, this one is a Land Cruiser, over there is a Mercedes, and over there we have an expensive Audi. Rolls-Royce are driving all over the place. I think this is not what people associate Cambodia with. So when did Cambodia become, well, at the very least Phnom Penh, become the city of Rolls-Royces, Mercedes, and for the poor people, Lexus?
It has only been in the last 5 to 7 years that we have seen this happen. When the Chinese started investing their money here in construction and in their casinos. And because of that, everything began to change miraculously. And I think that if you give it another 5 years, you're going to hear people talking about this as an Asian miracle, similar to what happened in Singapore.
I don't think Cambodia will look like Singapore. Singapore has too many rules, too strict. Everything is more expensive. And if you compare it to here in Cambodia, here salaries are low, but the cost of living is also low. Cost of food is so low, cost of beer is so low. So no, the trick with Cambodia is that it's so easy to do business here, whereas Singapore everything is too strict. So if Cambodia went away, it would lose its charm. Its potential investors would stop coming.
So Cambodia is like the Wild West.
Cambodia is like the Wild West, but it's actually the safest place I've ever lived. You know, there's very, very little crime. There's no cameras everywhere. The police clock off at 5 p.m. normally. And we do what we want. But so far, I've never had a problem. In 9 years, I've never had a problem. Not once.
All right, guys, so these are the huts that people live in on the river. That's a hammock, which people sleep on. And some of their things, a plush toy, which means there's a child living here. And behind me, you can see the view that they have. All of those luxurious and modern buildings. The contrast is simply amazing. So you see, those who do not have enough money for a boat make their homes in huts like these. Over here is a small corner to sleep in.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's all there is, actually.
I came here from a small village in the east of the country. I don't have any money at all. There is nothing to live on.
Well, I don't think he has parents anymore. They died long ago. Dead for a long time.
Yeah, they all died. His father and mother.
Yeah.
He has nowhere to live.
So guys, this is the so-called boat settlements in Phnom Penh. Those who can't afford so much as a little hut live out here on little boats. And those people who are too poor to afford boats spend their days collecting garbage, especially polystyrene foam, to build rafts. And that is what they sleep on. Just like it was many years ago, this river is a primary source of food and a place to wash, as you can see this guy is doing, and he drinks this same water. And this is a kind of casino, but it is only meant for the local people. This is a kind of lottery, and they mainly play for money, but very small amounts, because people here don't have much money, and sometimes they will use bones or garlic.
Oh, hi.
Oh, okay. People like to play chess and cards for money, and they're not big fans of the fact that I am filming them because gambling is prohibited, even though so many casinos are being built around the city. But to play in someone's backyard just for a few pennies, that is a crime. In some parts of Phnom Penh, the contrast is simply amazing. I mean, just look at this house. It is made entirely out of tin. This is part of a slum where so many people have no electricity, no surge system, nothing like that at all. At the same time, on the other side of the river, construction is happening on some massive, modern, and gorgeous, luxurious business centers, casinos, and even skyscrapers. That is some elite real estate where people drive around in Rolls-Royces. All this wealth is just meters from here, on the other side of the river, while here, people are living in little tin shacks. But even the most gorgeous local new skyscrapers taking over the city can be compared to the original Cambodian architecture, the ancient city of Angkor with its high number of incredible temples. The most famous, and at the same time the most enigmatic, Angkor Wat, our destination for today. The city was called Angkor, which translates to city, and Angkor Wat was the city's main temple. Guys, this is the New York of the Middle Ages. It was the main city of that time. Angkor Wat. According to different estimates, by the 13th century, there were 700,000 to 1 million people living here. Just for perspective, in London at that time, there were about 50,000 people, and in Paris, there was 60 to 80,000 inhabitants. But here, there were at least 700,000 people. This city, it easily surpassed everything around it, well, everything that was on the planet at that time by about 500 years. Guys, I generally try to avoid taking you to the typical tourist attractions because if you want to see those, there are hundreds of other bloggers. But we find ourselves in Angkor Wat, and there's a good chance that this is the most famous temple in the whole world. It's a massive complex, which is located in the northwest of Cambodia. And I didn't just come here to show you what makes it such a big tourist attraction, because this complex is home to a huge number of mysteries around the history of Cambodia. The main one being how something as immense and impressive as this could have been built in the 12th century.
Angkor Wat. Although it is the largest temple in Angkor, it was built in 37 years. Construction began in 1113, and eventually it was completed in 1150.
To understand why this is such a big deal, here is a comparison. Around the same time, or a bit later, in the year 1163, construction began on the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. And this cathedral is 60 times smaller than Angkor Wat, and it took the French 57 years of construction. And then, by the year 1220, it didn't even have towers. In its entirety, the construction of the Notre Dame took 180 years, which is generally considered normal when we are talking about such majestic buildings. Angkor Wat was built from start to finish in 37 years, with all of its towers, fences, libraries, and so on. And if this isn't impressive enough for you, then here is another comparison. When the Notre Dame Cathedral, one of Paris's main landmarks, caught fire, French authorities did everything they could to restore it to how it was.
Oh my god, it's burning!
We will get the best specialists. We are going to bring them in to help us. We will restore it.
And even with today's technology, it has been under construction for 4 years, and they estimate that they'll be done in 2024 or 2025, despite the fact that it is 60 times smaller than Angkor Wat. So, if today's builders were on the job, then building this temple would have taken 3 centuries. So how did builders in the 12th century get it done in 37 years?
During that time, they didn't have anything like our technology. Every single stone was carved by hand, and even the quarry for a sandstone was very far from here. But they surely must have had many skilled craftsmen, and they trained elephants and horses to work with people like a machine. It would have been very difficult to lift the stones. They used elephants to pull the ropes and turn the poles. All they had were wooden stairs and bamboo guides. People knew about some techniques to build this. That's how they were able to construct it so quickly. We just lost the skill. We don't even know we'll never know the technique to build something like this.
It's nonsense. I mean, it's nonsense because usually we generally believe that people in the past were a lot less developed than we are.
Yes, they didn't even have a piece of paper to draw on. So they used to chart their plans on stone to get a master plan. See how big this building is and how many pieces of stone they used to build an entire city? So they must have known, some of the people, how to build this entire city, all in 37 years.
This temple is just part of the picture. As a whole, Angkor was a massive place, and going by the latest research, it was crossed by dozens of perpendicular canals, on the shores of which hundreds of thousands of people lived. 4 huge lakes were dug to provide the city's main water supply, and 3 of them still exist today. Just feast your eyes on this absolutely incredible plan. And yes, for comparison, this is what Paris looked like back then. And this is what Europe's largest city, Constantinople, was like back then. Angkor was the largest city that had been built in the world until we entered the Industrial Age.
This soil was dug up to build a moat outside and to make this area a bit higher. So in the beginning, because they wanted to build this temple, they had to dig all that out first. And then they brought the soil over here. They brought it all over here to make it higher. That's why we could see that mill. This is one of the techniques they had to get all the rainwater out in the rainy season. In the new year, the rainy season, you get rain for 6 months. But this area around the main building, it never flooded at all here because all the rainwater is drained out into the canals.
At the same time, the quality of work in Angkor Wat is nothing short of amazing. Look at how the stones are aligned with each other, and just imagine to yourself they are cut out like this. Imagine how difficult it is to put 2 stones next to each other, and then it would make such a recess. And then to carve this little design here, which seems to represent one stone flowing into another. Just imagine, just take a step back for a moment and just imagine this being done in the 12th century. Just imagine how something as intricate as this could have been done. To do it like this, first, to join the stones up like this and make sure they're even, and also to cut the corners into exactly the right shape, and then to design these little carvings which are also perfectly even. Incredible. The 12th century. The quality of the masonry. Look how one stone meets the other stone. And the seam is so thin you barely notice. And at the same time, the relief that has been drawn right over it. See how it goes on as if there's nothing there? Remember, this was done in the 12th century, and it's just perfect. But in the 19th century, this wouldn't have been possible. Here's another seam I want you to see. And this flower is right on top of it, but you can barely notice it. It is absolutely imperceptible. Just for comparison here, guys, the stones that you see here were placed here very recently. This is 21st century? These stones?
Yes, these are very new.
Really?
Yeah, they are new. These stones were laid quite recently, basically just to stabilize this part of the restoration by UNESCO.
And if you look at it, you can see the seams clearly. Look at the seams on these stones and compare them with those thin ones.
Yes.
The ones between the stones in the 12th century. This is worse than the ones they did 1,000 years ago.
Yes. The level of construction 1,000 years ago, it must have been very advanced, although they had nothing. And they must have been very, very skillful.
Every single corner of this temple is covered in the most intricate stone carvings, even places no one will ever see.
They were cut so that the stones interlock, so they're able to hold together. And afterwards, they would outline the stone face and then carved to get this beautiful design. You can see. Even the base, almost every piece of stone was covered in decoration. You see, there are a lot of carvings almost everywhere. Here you can see some reliefs, and some of these are shiny. That's because tourists are touching them.
Look at this, guys. Look at the detail. The pattern of the clothes. Look at the face. See how perfectly it has been engraved in the wall. Hands and fingers. The work that these people did is on another level. And it goes on for ages. This whole thing is one massive relief. It runs all along this wall. All of the walls in Angkor Wat are covered with this kind of work. People, animals, various battle scenes, or even just normal scenes of life. This is the finest, most detailed work. The finest. To remind you, this is from the 12th century.
When they first found Angkor Wat, which was in the late 1850s, well, based on the French records, some of the parts of this building were heavily covered by green vegetation. We think some of the green plants took over, and a lot of bats sleep inside these buildings. And that's why you can see at the bottom of these columns there is damage. It's because of bat droppings. When the bat droppings mix with the rainwater, it's very acidic. That's why the columns are eroded at the bottom more than at the top. But this interesting scene is depicting the flight between Rama and the Demon King. Rama brought a lot of monkey warriors with him to fight, with Ravana, who was the Demon King. So they fought with each other for one beautiful girl, Sita. She was Rama's wife. But the Demon King kidnapped her, and that's why we see these activities, all fighting, of the monkey warriors and the demons.
It was this very wall in Angkor Wat that inspired Rudyard Kipling to come up with the Bangarlogs in his classic The Jungle Book about the boy Mowgli, who was raised by animals. By the way, the Bangarlogs, or should I say monkeys, still inhabit the temples of Angkor.
In this area, we found almost 1,000 different temples.
1,000?
Yes.
Well, of course, if you have 1 million
because
people, you're going to need more than just one temple. It's interesting to note that the later the temple was built, the more simplistic it seems to have been built.
Everybody trippy, yeah, we come in, yes, they're back.
So, this is 50 years younger than Angkor Wat. But this looks much more primitive than Angkor.
Well, actually, some of the parts of the building, they're in perfect condition. It depends on the rain and wind direction. And some parts of the carvings, they were covered so the rain wouldn't have got to them too much. That's why they are still in this condition. But this is still the original. It looks more impressive. It's very cool.
Compare the amount of detail right here to the amount of detail in what we saw before, the reliefs in Angkor Wat. This is newer. These guys should have had better technology because 50 years had passed, so they should have figured out new techniques and done better. A mystery.
Almost everywhere around Angkor Wat, you will see these beautiful female figures. We call them Apsara. Up means the sky, and Sara means dancing. So Apsara means the heavenly dance. They have different features, some are smiling or they're singing. They have their own expressions. They catch our eye everywhere. Some of them are shiny because the tourists touch them. The Apsara dance is one of the oldest dances in the world. And now it is on the list of UNESCO. I mean, it's protected by UNESCO.
This is the temple of Bante Samra. By the way, those statues on the roof, the ones that look like phalluses, well, those are phalluses.
Oh.
This is also an Angkor, and it was built in parallel with Angkor Wat. It was the same monarch, and it's safe to assume that they used the same specialists and the same laborers, but it's pretty clear that there's a difference in quality. Just look at the work. Pay attention to the joints that are between the slabs, and also look at how the patterns on the walls were made. It really looks to me like they come from two different eras. So what we have here is more like the standard slit work of that time, and the stones all still fit pretty well together, but it's still nothing like the level of workmanship that we saw over in Angkor Wat. Have a look at what's going on over here. Here we have all the component parts, but look at how they are fitted together. You can see that they were trying to carry on with the pattern over the joint, but this is clearly not a very easy thing to do, and they couldn't do it accurately. Look how this one goes and goes and goes and goes. And over here, they tried hard to keep the design going, but it is pretty plain to see that they failed. They didn't do a good job with carrying the design on. Again, this is all incredibly high quality, considering the time and the technology that they had. And it is very similar to what you would expect from a very high quality building that was constructed in the 12th century. But this is nothing close to the quality of workmanship we saw in Angkor Wat. In Angkor Wat, you cannot see the lines between the blocks. But here you see them. This is the same time period, the same era. But it's just a little bit worse than Angkor.
Yes, each one is slightly different, even if they were constructed at the same time. So, like this one, see, it's flat. There are also 3 layers, but they are all at the bottom, like this.
Just look at the quality of the masonry. I'm going to say it once again, that they're all from the same era. There is a theory that Angkor Wat was not actually built in 37 years, that the archaeologists got it wrong somewhere. They miscalculated the dates. They were incorrect records. Basically, it took a bit longer to build because the amount of stone that they needed would have been hard to deliver, well, that amount of stone in 37 years with the technology they had. All you can hear is the sound of birds singing. It's absolutely deserted. At the same time, the temple has survived in a pretty good condition. I mean, the colonnades and even the central courtyard of the temple itself, it's like it was still alive. Is it always like this? I mean, so quiet with no one around?
This temple is always like this. So usually it's quiet and peaceful. So compared to like Angkor or Bayonne, where normally there are a lot of people, lots of visitors.
You know what, guys? No videos and no photographs can capture how beautiful this place really is. They don't really capture the atmosphere. When I was preparing, I went over so much material, but nothing can prepare you for what it's really like. When you get here, it's different. So, the coolest thing about all this is that in its vicinity, you can walk right through all of the ruins and be immersed in them. Usually in museums like this, the historical parts are fenced off and you can only walk along some paths, but here you can walk almost anywhere you want, although some parts are fenced off, but this is just for safety because you wouldn't want a stone falling on your head. But generally, you can walk through the ruins. Have a look at this quickly, guys. This arrow is pointing to the west, and there is clearly a passage. And this other arrow is pointing to the east, and there's a passage. And north, my friends, the compass is pointing to absolute north. And south, this one is pointing to absolute south. All of these passages were clearly collaborated to the cardinal points with complete accuracy, without any compass, in the 12th century. Over in Europe, they will only invent the compass about half a century after the construction of Angkor Wat. It's possible that the ancient Cambodians used the Chinese compass, which was created with a magnetic spoon, but even when that was working at its best, it had a margin of error of 15 degrees. Around the time Angkor Wat was being constructed, the Chinese invented a compass without a needle, but that doesn't answer our question because it pointed to magnetic north, which is a different point to the geographical points which we saw when I was pointing them out on my smartphone. And the passages in Angkor are entirely based on the geographical points which can only be identified with the help of a system of satellites and complex mathematical calculations based on the magnetic pole. These days, all this can be done on a smartphone, but back in the 12th century, how would they have gotten it right? It's hard to give an answer. But as a result of such a clear orientation, twice a year, on the day of equinox, if you look from the main entrance, the sun rises directly behind the central tower of Angkor Wat. And just watch how the tourists flock to see it.
This building, its architecture is quite amazing. 6 months the sun is on the right, 6 months the sun is on the left. That's why twice a year we see a beautiful sunrise rising right behind the central tower of this beautiful temple.
And stars are not that proper. I mean, stars don't show you north, for example. They show you somewhere close to north, but not exactly. How?
That's aliens. Nobody knows exactly, but this part of Angkor's history, no one really knows for sure. Records from that period, they're gone.
You know, guys, I've never been a big fan of those conspiracy theories about the aliens coming down to Earth and building the Egyptian pyramids or building Angkor Wat because I think it makes things too simple. Or maybe they make things too complicated, but in general with conspiracy theories, I don't know, but they just don't make any sense to my mind. If you have your own conspiracy theories, then let me know. In any case, it is obvious that the Khmer were one of the most developed civilizations on the planet. And on top of that, it happened relatively recently. They possessed the most advanced technology and they built a city that was truly massive for that time. But for some reason, they didn't think to leave any written evidence of their existence. There are no Khmer books on the construction of this city, nor are there any drawings or plans. On top of that, there is no real understanding about what possible reason the Khmer would have had for leaving the greatest city in the world one fine day. Imagine for a moment today's largest metropolises. What do you think would make their people just get up and pack everything and abandon all of it, just to go settle in the fields and jungles? What is your explanation? Why was this city abandoned? I mean, okay, the invaders came in and they captured this land. But why didn't they stay here? They conquered the biggest city in the world and then just abandoned it.
Well, there were two different theories to explain all of this. Why did they go from here? The first theory is Angkor was invaded by so many Siamese raiders, many times, throughout the centuries, that the late king, who had liberated Angkor from the Siam people, he decided to move the city out of here, this area, to a different place. It is mainly for safety. So they moved out of here mainly for safety because of the Siam invasions. Another popular theory that at the end of the Angkor period, during the late 12th, 13th centuries, they stopped getting rainfall for 10 years. So all of the different lakes and irrigation systems, they completely dried up. So no more water for farming, and it forced them to move out of this area to a different area, closer to the Mekong River, so they got water from the Mekong River. So it's just two main things. Two different concepts to explain why they moved out from the Angkor region.
Personally, the theory about invaders seems strange to me. Why conquer such a big, rich city just to give it back to nature? Unless you're an ecology extremist And 10 years without rain over a particular city also seems strange to me, because then all the neighboring countries would also starve, and it would also definitely be easier for a city with a developed system of lakes and canals than for cities that didn't have that in place. Overall, there is a lot of mystery, but we do know for sure that the main destroyers of Angkor were not the Siamese conquerors, and it wasn't even nature, but people who came later.
Angkor means city, Thom means big, so Angkor Thom means big city. There were 5 entrance gates to Angkor City, and this is one of them. This is the only one that still is in good condition. I mean that, as you can see, there are statues on both sides of the bridge. On the right, there are demons, and on the left, there are gods. But these statues, most of them, they are missing their original heads. Their original heads were looted by treasure hunters. And you can see the difference between the new heads and the original heads. If we talk about Buddha statues, almost all of them, they're gone. They're missing. Maybe some of them were taken by Siamese conquerors, and some of them were taken by treasure hunters.
This is considered the very first European drawing of Angkor Wat. In 1860, it was drawn by the French scientist Henri Moe, and the abandoned city that he introduced to Europe attracted tens and hundreds and thousands of treasure hunters, and to this day, people are still drawn to this Asian Wild West.
A lot of the beautiful things were taken away by bad people, especially when the country was not stable. So they were starving, so they just cut them off and took them away to sell on the black market. So
when was it? I mean, was it the 19th century, the 18th century?
No, even later than that. So 20th century, yes. Well, the French were here for 90 years. And then, after the French, foreign countries, they came here. Cambodia was invaded by foreign countries, so they took a lot of stuff out of this area, especially all of those beautiful things. Just recently, 27 different items just came back from the United States to Cambodia through the embassy.
Cambodian treasures can be found all over the world, in everything from state museums to the private collections of billionaires, so it's really no wonder that the movie Tomb Raider was shot in the country.
Well, Tomb Raider? It was the first movie with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
There was a big crew from America that came here to shoot that movie in 2011. So this temple now is getting more and more visits from tourists after Tomb Raider movies came out.
And even though Angelina Jolie walks around this temple for just a few minutes, there are still quite a lot of Buddhist monks who pose for photographs at exactly the same tree that the sexy treasure hunter walks past in the movie Tomb Raider. Overall, the temple is very cinematic, and the trees that grow through the walls give the whole place quite a magical atmosphere. The stumps look like they're from some huge octopus, some kind of giant octopus that lives under the ground. They're entangling the entire building.
Just look at that. Absolutely incredible.
This place just looks so truly surreal.
This is a unique temple in Angkor. It's the only one where the trees still continue to climb up through the ground. They're taking over. You can see how big they are. Some of them are well over 300 years old, and they are still alive and growing. And we've all made the decision not to cut them down, because we found that this is the best to show the world to understand what exactly has happened in the past, especially when the city of Angkor was moved out to a different place. And nobody looked after her. These beautiful things, and then Mother Nature came back and took over.
Guys, out of all the ruins I've been to in my life, these ones are the most beautiful by far. The ancient temple, the vines coming from the trees and spreading over the walls, the monkeys that you see in the corner of your eyes, the sound of bird songs in the air. This is such an incredible feeling. It feels as if I'm in Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider. These ruins are just so incredible. And most importantly, there are very few people. There are really not a lot of tourists. I think there are 3 or 4 people, and that's it. It's an incredible feeling. In Cambodia, they eat some very special fruit that they harvest from the palm tree. Usually we are used to palm trees giving us coconuts, but things are a little different here.
Well, all of these fruits, they are fruit from the palm tree. This flesh, I mean, it doesn't really...
Is it tasty?
That much flavor. We usually eat it with milk.
There is no milk or any other kind of liquid in these fruits like you usually get in coconuts. Okay, I think that I would like to have a taste. Can you give me a piece?
So you take it and put it in your mouth, just like that, and just chew. Is that recording?
It tastes just like the watery pulp that you get from a coconut, but it's not the same. Also, when it comes to the consistency, it's very similar to rice cake, but it grows on a palm tree. That is quite cool. It isn't sweet at all. It's not sour. The flavor is very subtle. You can hardly taste anything. There's a little bit of coconut. And I'm also getting rice, even though there's no rice in it. These are the fruits of the palm tree palmyra. The tree is common throughout Asia, but in Cambodia, it is the national tree. Like the olive tree in Greece and Italy, the cedar in Lebanon, or the birch in Russia. The palm tree allowed the Cambodian people to live through some of the most terrible years of the 20th century because the fruit they got from it is very nutritious and was often the only source of food.
Can't stop, won't stop, till I told the world when the glow trap. Then a nigga dope let the stove top. Type of shit they hide in a tube sock.
Okay guys, this is a traditional Cambodian village house. They're usually built on these chicken leg type poles. People live on the top and they can have a garage below, but it is more traditional to have some kind of canopy for the animals. For the animals who live under the house. People often sleep under the houses when it gets really hot because it's nice and shady down there. And having the house up on the poles helps during the rainy season because when it rains here, the area is prone to massive flooding. This is about as authentic as it gets. The upper part is made of planks of wood, and under the house, you can see how these people have set themselves right up. They have put up a hammock that they can lie in. Hello? Hello?
Hello, hello,
Yeah.
hello, hello.
Here's the kitchen. The kitchen is right over there. Okay, so when the people here go to bed in the upstairs part, the downstairs area gets taken over by animals. These include piglets and chickens, whatever the people have. Guys, have a look at this. These people have a karaoke system. This is for karaoke, right?
Yes.
Do you sing?
No, my husband does.
Your
Yes.
husband sings? So this speaker meant for karaoke is just here in the center of this Cambodian house. The most important thing, the most expensive thing here is this karaoke speaker in this house. Nothing else matches up. Nothing else is as expensive. I mean, just look at the TV over there. The kitchen is nothing much, but the speaker is truly a gorgeous piece of art. I mean, the attention to detail in the leather is brilliant. He clearly wants the sound to be good because he has some gadgets. He has a whole sound system set up just for karaoke. This is all for karaoke, right?
Yes.
The man has gone all out on his karaoke system. They also have an automatic hair cutting system. You just go and you come out with a nice haircut. And this, guys, is what a shop in the village looks like. Yes, this is a village store. You can see what the most important things are for these people. There's oil, sugar, and cigarettes, yeah, and coffee. Everything that a gentleman needs.
She want me to lock it down, but I told her to pass the key.
If you are going to correspond with a Cambodian, then you'll find that they often end their sentences with B or bo, and it may seem that this is a shortening of the word boss, and that this is the way Cambodians address foreigners out of respect, but it's a shortening of the word bong, which, in Cambodian means brother or sister. Just like in many other countries, sir, madame, monsieur, or in the Soviet Union they said comrade. People here in Cambodia address each other by using the word brother. And I think that really says a lot about Cambodians. If a Cambodian has something to celebrate and they invite a lot of guests, then they set all these up. These massive tents which they set up on the street. And this is mainly for funerals and for weddings. And this is where all the friends and loved ones gather. And if I understand it correctly, these tents can be set up on any street. Oh, look, there are tables all in a row.
Yeah, and you know the main feature about events like this one is that you come to them for free, but getting in will cost money. And so...
What do you mean it's free to come, but getting in costs money? Do you mean
no,
if you don't have
it.
an invitation, you have to pay?
We can go without an invitation, and they'll seat us at the table, and they'll give us whatever we drink and eat. And we will have a lovely meal, and there will be a ceremony. But when the festivities are done and we're about to leave, they'll give us envelopes. And then we have to put money in those envelopes as a sign of gratitude.
How much is normal?
At weddings, the minimum is normally around, well, in villages it normally starts at $15 and goes up to $20. And at funerals, also depending on the area, it starts at $5 and we can go up to $10, $15, $20 or whatever people can afford. But as a rule, the event should be paying for itself. And it is profitable to invite foreigners because at weddings they also have this interesting tradition. What happens is when you get your envelope, you have to write your name. And
yeah.
The bride and groom then start a notebook where they write down the names of all the guests who were at the wedding. And then when they get invited in turn, they get into that notebook and check if that person was at their wedding, and then they see how much money they gave them. Do you get me?
So if they only gave a little, they'll get a little in return, right?
No, tradition states that they are obligated to give a little more, at least $5 to $10 more.
Ah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Generous. Generous. Guys, this is the very first time I have ever seen plants on the inside of a tuk-tuk. Tuk-tuks are the main mode of transport of Cambodia, and they are very cost-effective. You can drive around the capital for just a few dollars, and to get from the airport to the hotel costs less than $10. Not long before the pandemic, Phnom Penh started getting public transport. This is what the buses look like. But the thing with these buses is that they are not in massive demand, because most of the time the Cambodian people just don't like to use them. And why would you when there are mopeds? For example, guys, take a look at that bus. It's completely empty. There's no one at all. Nobody in the city wants to ride on that bus.
Lot of blessings piling up that I ain't even wish for. None left over for y'all. I'm locking the fridge door at the crib, cutting hits.
Now, guys, I'm going to show you the most popular snack in Cambodia. It looks interesting. May I try one? Okay. So these are shells that can be flavored with salt or like these ones with pepper. So the first step is to open them. And then it's time to eat. Similar to sunflower seeds and packed with protein, the raw shells are sprinkled with generous amounts of salt and pepper and then left out in the sun to dry. But I tried not to eat too much because I was driving to one of the most terrible places in Cambodia. There are rows and rows of pictures of children, and it looks like most of these children are just 8 or 9 years old. Some of them might even be 7. I mean, they're not even teenagers, not 18 years old or not even 16. Look how young they are. Guys, we are in one of the most terrible places in the history of Cambodia. This is a school. It's just a school in the center of the Cambodian capital city, Phnom Penh. Children are taught in here. And this is a playground. Over here you can see bars for children to pull themselves up on. Or rather, it was a school until August 1975 when the Khmer Rouge came to power. Once they came to power, they turned this school into one of the most terrible death camps in the history of the country, and maybe in the history of the whole world. Here we have more of those bars, and here we have another much bigger one, but it's no plaything. Not at all. This is a rack on which a person was lifted up by hands that would have been tied behind their back, and the person hung like this until they died. As a matter of fact, the point was not only to torture a person, although that was part of it. The point is, quite simply, that the Khmer Rouge didn't want to waste any bullets on anyone they didn't need to, and they didn't know how to produce their own bullets. They were very valuable to them. And because they couldn't waste any resources at all, they came up with this system that... well, that's why they were killed like this. The Khmer Rouge violently came to power in 1975. They abolished science, they abolished education, they abolished families, and children were raised in communes. And they abolished money. They abolished everything. They even reset the calendar and started from the beginning. The leaders of the organization were not allowed to be called by their names. The head honcho, Pol Pot, became known as Brother Number 1, keeping to the Cambodian tradition of calling people brother. His subordinates were Brother Number 2, Number 3, and so on. And anyone who disagreed with them would be killed violently. According to various estimates, in the 4 years of their rule, a third of the country's entire population was wiped out. The school, which was turned into a prison camp with the codename S-21, was just one of many sites of mass execution. One of the prisoners of the S-21 prison was the artist Van Nath, and somewhat ironically, before he was arrested, he was someone who made propaganda leaflets that tried to win support for the Khmer Rouge. And he made massive posters that praised them, but apparently this was not enough. And he got sent to the toughest prison camp of them all. In a sense, you could say he was lucky, because he was arrested in 1978, which was a year before the Khmer Rouge regime fell, and so because of that, he managed to avoid most of the horror that was being inflicted. When he finally came out, he carried on creating art, but of a different kind. And now his paintings are probably one of the most terrible and shocking testimonies to all of those incredible atrocities that were being perpetrated at the time by the regime on the grounds of this school. Alright, at one point this was a classroom, but then the authorities divided it into these tiny rooms, each for solitary confinement. Everything here has been left as it was between the years of 1975 and 79. Passages like this were cut between the classes so that the guards could move between the rooms freely. There are just prisons, 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 as far as the eye can see. In these solitary cells, there's practically no writing to be found on the walls, well, except for the scratchings of ignorant tourists who think that it's appropriate to do that in here for some reason. The fact is that in Cambodia, under the Khmer Rouge regime, writing had already been made a crime. If any of the prisoners were caught writing on the walls, if the guards found any inscriptions on the walls at all, it would have made an already bad situation even more awful. It would have been horror on a higher level. Writing was a punishable offense. The most terrible and, to be honest, the most incomprehensible thing is that the director of this prison camp was a former teacher. I mean, this was a person who had a good education and a good family. This was someone who taught children. And judging by the reviews, he was a good teacher. And before the Khmer Rouge regime took over, he taught in an ordinary village school. How could a person like that become not just the director of the most terrible torture center in the country? He came up with different methods of torture. He came up with new ways to make a person feel unimaginable pain without dying, but wishing that they were dead. How? This man was not some kind of undereducated, like maniac. This was a seemingly sane person. That's how it goes. You never really know. the Khmer Rouge was initially supported by the intelligentsia, who were tired of puppet leaders and American intervention. Paradoxically, they were also supported by the Americans, since they were then at odds with the Vietnamese communists. So 5 years before the Khmer Rouge regime took over, Cambodian partisans were armed, trained, and even taught to speak a high level of English.
Do you really think Cambodians can defend themselves by themselves against the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese?
We do. We do think that because when we are a group, we are empowered. When we group together, the things that we need are only weapons.
It was this weaponry that ultimately helped them come to power. Bu Meng was also a prisoner at the S-21 camp.
2 years, here. In a cage. The scariest part of it came in the last few days. We were beaten so hard. There was no food. Yeah.
He is constantly agreeing with somebody as if he is still at risk of being tortured or as if he's still being interrogated by the guards. Now he works as a caretaker at the prison museum. He is one of only 7 who made it out of the camp alive. His wife and child unfortunately didn't make it. How did you manage to survive?
What helped me get through it was the fact that I just kept encouraging myself to endure. Endure. Another minute, another hour, another day. I survived, and I'm fine. I found a way to survive, and now I'm okay. Yeah. They wouldn't beat me every day. They would often take breaks to give the wounds time to heal, and this is what my back looked like.
Tell him why you were brought here, why you were arrested.
They told me that the things I was drawing then were not right, that they challenged the authorities.
Many classrooms were not divided into smaller cells, and these were common chambers, rooms in which people were held in a special way. They were handcuffed to each other so that they could not move at all. They were tied to each other as if they were cattle. Obviously, it was so that they couldn't escape. And this is how people sat day after day and week after week and sometimes even month after month. They fed people as much as they could, and they cleaned them by simply putting a hose through the windows. Here is a picture of 2 British sailors who were accidentally blown into Cambodian waters. They were arrested and eventually perished in S-21. A confession from one of them was published, in which he allegedly admits that he was a CIA agent pretending to be a school teacher. He said his father was also a CIA agent and a school principal, and nobody thought that it was a little bit strange that a man born in 1952 joined the CIA in 1964 when he would have only been 12 years old. According to the authorities, there was nothing strange about this, since a lot of the soldiers in their army were only children whose parents had lost their lives at the hands of the Khmer Rouge. And there is a very powerful film about this called First They Killed My Father by Angelina Jolie. I recommend it. You know, it's really like a concentration of every single thing that the Khmer Rouge did. Actually, this doesn't apply exclusively to them. But to turn a school into a torture camp, to turn a place of science into a place where humans kill other humans in the name of science, to take a place where children look into the future with a sense of optimism and expectation, and turn it into a place where there isn't any hope at all. And one way or another, every regime ends up doing the same thing. It seems to be the pattern. But what the Khmer Rouge did was show us the limits of depravity to its very ends. Hundreds of thousands of Cambodians fled the country, most going to Thailand, where they were put into special camps. KK's mother was pregnant when she crossed the border with her husband and was put into one of the camps.
And I was born in a refugee camp.
How did it happen?
Because there was a war here in Cambodia.
What year was it?
I can't tell you. I don't remember it myself. All I really know is that they were in a refugee camp. refugee camp, and they were sponsored to go to the US.
Of all the large countries, the United States was the only one that agreed to take in Cambodian refugees. So a guy who was conceived in Cambodia and born in Thailand ended up in California, where fate would lead him to gangsterism and a spell in prison. Just to go back to where the whole journey started. In any case, it was a lot better than ending up in the S-21 camp. Prisoners held in this camp were later taken to the outskirts of the city to be executed. It's quiet here. The cicadas are singing. This is the death field, guys. Here, since 1975, people would be brought to be shot, and in 1977, trucks packed with people destined for death would come to this field every day. At least 300 prisoners were killed every day. The trucks would come, and there would be so many that the gunmen didn't have time to get through all the people in time. And because of that, prisoners would sit here and hear people being killed and just wait for their turn. Rows and rows of cabinets filled with skulls, real human skulls. These are only the skulls of the people who were shot on this killing field. Throughout the rest of Cambodia, there are 10 of these fields. Here we have the weapons that the regime used to carry out the executions, and as I said earlier, they didn't use guns. Bullets were valuable to them, so they didn't waste any of them. They used their axes and their sticks, but mostly their weapon of choice was the hoe. The victims in this case were under 20 years old, both men and women. The Khmer Rouge regime brought us the most inhumane behavior that the 20th century would see. But the worst thing, apart from it destroying a third of the entire population, a third, was that it, in its entirety, it was absolutely irrational and absolutely illogical. For example, they would kill anyone who wore glasses, and they would kill people who didn't have calluses on their hands, and they would kidnap and kill all of the doctors. The details of everyday life in democratic Cambodia are not well known because for obvious reasons there were basically no foreigners in the country to try and describe it from an objective point of view. But it is more or less clear that in 1976, in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, where only officials of the regime were living, an epidemic of dysentery, which is an intestinal disease, broke out and spread quickly because they had got rid of all the doctors and the medicine. Pol Pot himself and his closest circle were constantly flying to China to get treatment, but the rest of them, including high-ranking officials, simply could not afford the same treatment, and there were thousands and thousands of them. Do you understand? They were really sitting on toilet seats, suffering from dysentery, and thinking about how they were going to kill even more people. I really can't wrap my head around it. Now the killing field has become a major tourist attraction. There are beautiful women posing beautifully, taking pictures for social media, all against the backdrop of mass execution. At least they know they're going to look beautiful.
Fours for $1.
They also sell flowers and souvenirs here, at least not the bones. This building is filled up with actual human skulls, and next to it, there's a man selling flowers. And guys, this is the real difference between communism, the brand of the system that Pol Pot was trying to build here, and capitalism, where money can be found at every opportunity, a shopping center. Well, at the end of the day, flowers are better than skulls. Growing flowers and selling them to tourists is better than producing more skulls.
Sounded like a real nigga anthem. Shawty saw my wallet, now she think a nigga handsome. Whoa, telling me she wanted me to hammer. Trying to get saved, baby, I am not the answer.
When all of that ended, when they found Pol Pot in 1996, they said that they forgive him. All of those guys were in the military at the time and were openly committing crimes against humanity. They were all sincerely forgiven for everything that they did. And they said that it's better to have a bad peace than a good war. And they began to live with it. They stopped condemning them, they stopped paying attention to them. They said that this is the situation and accepted it.
But that's very interesting.
It's just the nature of Asian people. The mentality that they have here is one of being able to forgive people. And if they hadn't done it this way, then there would have been a civil war. There would be a horrible cycle of vengeance that would still be going on today.
Considering that this country, until very recently, was a war-torn country, the people are so happy here, so nice, and we just don't see depression. We don't really see sadness. The happiest people are actually the poorest people. They're just happy to be getting on with life, and...
How can you explain that? You're totally right, but how do you explain it? I mean, in the 20th century, this nation survived like the worst thing that any country could go through, but they're still so friendly and nice.
Yeah, I honestly can't. I can't explain it myself. I've never met another culture that's been war-torn, and they're just amazing people. And like I said, they're all great. If you just get stuck in the rain on your bike, or you're just traveling around the country backpacking, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't know what's going on, the locals will ask you to come in. They will make you their guest, and they're very, the amount of money you have is nothing in this culture. It doesn't matter who you are. You go to a shack, you sit there, hang around. You know, they give you a beer, they give you some soup. If they're eating, they'll share it with you. I mean, it really is an amazing country.
Yeah.
You can use it like this.
Seven shows me the traditional Cambodian headscarf.
Mm-hmm. Is it beautiful?
Yes.
And more?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like that? Oh, so this is to cover your head.
Yes, sir.
So it's completely normal for villagers to wear this, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And there's another one. If you want to put something inside here, you hold it out like this.
The Cambodian headscarf is used to carry children and pack clothes in, and it's the only way to take a shower.
To take a shower, we normally use a bigger one than this. You can use it for protection. Yeah, like this. And like this for men. Good to shower. Well,
yeah, so this scarf is for anything, right?
Anything.
You can use it for whatever.
And also, like this, he's so sweaty. You can also use it like this. Oh, okay. And this, in Cambodia, we call this a groma.
Uh-huh.
Bam, bam, she wanna flick for the gram. Plus, her baby stopping who I am, so she wanna do it all on.
We're at the night market in Phnom Penh, and the Rolls-Royce sales lady, Seven, has promised to show me what Cambodians eat on a normal night out. Guys, today we are sampling the night markets of Phnom Penh. Decades of hunger taught the Cambodians that, whether it moves or not, eat it. Look at this here. They have a plate of these disgusting-looking Colorado beetles. And over here we have a bowl of these massive... I don't really know if they're beetles or some kind of... I don't know... Maybe there's some kind of cicada? And over here we have smaller ones. Cicadas, or maybe they're also beetles. There's another kind of beetle on this plate. But the most important thing, my friends, is this. And I think it's something you will only find in Cambodia. It is a frog. A fried frog. A little one. I think I'll save this guy for dessert. And I think for my starter, I'll have black beetles. You know, guys, this is very hard. Should I eat it like this? Oh, it's so hard that I feel like I just tried to eat a rock. Should I eat it like this? The whole...
No, you need to open it first.
So I need to clean it first. The beetle's shell, head, and legs are torn off. Eat only what's inside, yes? Alright guys, it's good to go. My first attempt was in vain and it was absolutely terrible. It was almost like eating a sea urchin. But with the shell and everything. You know what I mean by that. It just falls apart in your mouth. It's a lot better this way, but no.
No.
No, my friends, it's a no. Now, what is next? I think the next one should be coconut worm. Here's what it looks like. When it's been fried, Like a crumbled, I don't know what. Let me know what you think it looks like in the comments. Oi! I just felt it bursting. It burst in my mouth. That feels so strange. Well, the coconut worm is, generally speaking, edible. It's okay. It's delicious, says the woman to me. It's delicious. All right. Time for the whole frog. Do you like this? Do you like frogs?
Yeah, I like frogs.
You like frogs?
Yes, sir.
Yes? When I eat it, will I survive?
Yes.
I don't even know how to put it in my mouth. Should I go feet first or head first? Okay. That isn't bad. It tastes like fried chicken. I can't feel the bones at all. Damn, I really just ate a frog. Cambodian restaurants where the locals eat are basically like big living rooms. Everybody sits together on a big carpet, children play nearby, and there isn't much splitting into different groups. The main dish in Cambodia is called prahok. Whoa! Basically, this is rotten fish with salt. Most of the time it gets used as a sauce. It looks and smells disgusting, but there is a saying in Cambodia that if a dish is missing prahok, then it has no flavor. To make it better, you can add some pepper, or some nuts, lemon, or whatever you feel like. Some fermented fish with lemon.
It's nice.
That definitely smells like a dead fish. That's the deadest fish I ever smelled. There's some lemon, but I can't smell anything else. There's really nothing.
Good. Good for me. Not for you. Good for me, bad for you.
Okay, but anyway, I will try it. This is a sauce that can be added to any dish. It doesn't make a difference how anything else might have been prepared. This is a sauce for every occasion. All right, my friends, now I am really going to try a sauce made from fermented fish. The thought of eating this is freaking me out. I've never been too scared to eat anything. Until now.
Try it, it's good. It doesn't smell good, but it tastes good.
Let me take some cabbage. At least I know it's safe. Herbs might help with the flavor. Look, a green tomato, but that doesn't bother me anymore. Tomato, you do not scare me anymore. The guts, even this isn't enough to put me off. Let me say that I don't know which part of the gut this is. If you have an answer for me, be sure to let me know, because I don't have any idea. But the main thing, it's time for me to try the sauce. Here we go. It's pretty spicy, very spicy. I don't know. My taste buds are atrophying. All I can feel is the spiciness. But it's not that bad. Let's go. Let's go.
Counted the money, okay. Might buy a crib with a view in LA. Niggas keep plotting, they want me to break down.
I say that, oh mother, this one is not good. I don't know how to eat it, or it doesn't smell good, or I don't know how to eat this, but my mother and father talk about, Pol Pot. They just talk about how they worked every day from early in the morning to the night without anything to eat except rice and soup. Rice soup is just some water and a bit of rice and just like you're drinking water.
Yeah.
Like you drink water, that was it. when I say, oh, this is not good, I don't know if I can eat anything, they talk about that. So try to eat it.
If you try to eat, you will be punished or even killed. When you eat like a potato, if you dig a potato out of the jungle or something like that, anywhere, if they catch you, you'll get punished.
At that time, if you could write in Khmer,
Yeah.
you could write in Khmer, you could write in French or English.
Yes.
They'd kill you. They didn't like people having knowledge. They didn't like people having any knowledge. They wanted it like that. You are like this. They are level, just like
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
The same. They didn't like high or low like this. So some people had some knowledge, or some talent, like a singer, for example.
Yeah.
They killed them.
It's just incredible how the Cambodians went through all of that and yet are still so hospitable.
Hello.
But when the Khmer Rouge was defeated and overthrown, with help from the Vietnamese, it wasn't the end of the misery for the people.
They tried to count me out. I'ma gon' count me in. Fill up my bank account. Now I got some to spend.
So this is the famous Red Piano, the restaurant and bar here in Siem Reap, which is famously adored by Angelina Jolie. The American Hollywood actress actually has a lot of connections to Cambodia. First, there's the movie Tomb Raider, which brought her a lot of fame. This was one of the first movies that got her the world's attention. And it was shot right here in Siem Reap, as well as the ruins of Angkor. And secondly, back in 2002, Angelina Jolie adopted her very first child here in Cambodia. And this was the start of a big and incredibly sad story. By the way, this bar serves Angelina Jolie's favorite cocktail. Siem Reap is the city Angkor is in, and it is the main tourist destination in Cambodia. Siem Reap itself, even without Angkor Wat, is a very interesting and atmospheric city. First of all, its center is mostly defined by these lovely old French colonial buildings. And secondly, there is a huge number of restaurants, cafes, and bars. And the atmosphere is that of a quiet and calm city where nobody seems to be in any kind of rush. It is a really lovely place, in my opinion. And if this city was founded for scientists by the French in the 19th century, then for a huge wave of tourists, Angelina Jolie opened the doors for them in the early 2000s.
Angelina Jolie, she's been so generous to this part of the world. She has already made 2 of her movies in Cambodia. The first movie was Tomb Raider, it was in 2001. And then another different movie that she shot here during COVID-19. It's called The One Who Killed My Father. And she also adopted a child from Cambodia. His name is Medak. Now he's a grown-up. And to this part of the world, she comes almost once a year because she has a property here. She's like a Cambodian.
Oh.
Yes, she's like a Cambodian citizen.
But it was her adoption of a Cambodian child that set off an incredible chain of events, as often happens in this country. Oof, okay guys, this is a story that will challenge every belief you've ever had about who to believe and who not to believe, and what's good and what's evil. It really turns everything on its head.
And in a minute, we're going to meet a remarkable young woman who was a sex slave, but found a way to survive and will be with us today.
In the 2000s, the whole world was enthralled by the story of Somali Mom.
Somali Mom was just 12 years old when she was sold into sex slavery, where she worked in brothels for the next 10 years.
Somali, ma'am, but I don't know what my real name is, of course.
She is a woman who was sold into sexual slavery by her parents in the late 1980s.
I've been a victim, I've been raped. That is me. Me.
Her parents gave her away. They forced her to get married to someone in the Khmer Rouge who took her to the jungle.
And he took me away and forced me to work. And then he sold me to the brothel, just like that.
Her story was shocking, but the most important thing about it is that there are a lot of women and girls in Cambodia who went through the same thing.
When you look at the whole problem, the statistics, sometimes it feels overwhelming. Well, it is overwhelming for sure, but every victim of human trafficking, whether it's a sex worker or even just a slave, is just like you and me.
A police raid in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. Officers have been tipped off. Apparently, there are girls as young as 12 in this brothel.
As a result of the war, many children were left without their parents. They would live on the streets. They didn't have a place to call home, and they didn't have money to even be able to afford a bowl of rice. In short, they died. But then Somali moms started raising money to help all the women and children of Cambodia.
If you feel you want to help, if you feel free, help us. Don't be afraid. If you don't feel free, don't help us, because we need, I need. If I'm taking something from people's hands, I think maybe I need love first.
She got a lot of help from NGOs and charity foundations and from the world of show business and from famous politicians. And she was repeatedly recognized as the person of the year, the hero of the year. She had the entirety of the global mass media watching and supporting her.
And now I have the great honor to introduce this extraordinary woman. Honor Disclaimer Magazine Woman of the Year, a CNN hero, and most recently one of the Time Magazine's most influential people of the year. She is my friend, my sister, the ultimate fighter for human rights, Samale Mam.
First, she was noticed by the Hollywood actress Susan Sarandon, who opened the doors of all the expensive houses and television studios for Somali Mom.
How many women have you already
saved? Right now, more than 4,000 girls and more than 4,000.
4,000 girls?
Here's Somali Mom with actor Dylan McDermott, and here she is being presented with Glamour Magazine's Person of the Year award. Movie stars were literally falling to their knees for the opportunity to have their pictures taken with Somali Mom. Soon politicians were also getting in on it. Here she is with the Queen of Spain, Sofia, and with the Spanish Prime Minister. And among the new fans of Cambodia was Michelle Obama, wife of the then American president.
I want to acknowledge
here she is being spoken about by the head of the State Department in the United States, John Kerry.
She helps abused victims start to get their lives back.
Here she is with Hillary Clinton, who even came to hug the girls and women who were saved by Somali Mom. Her story is a collection of all the fears that a person can experience, the absolute tyranny of the Khmer Rouge, life on the streets, male violence, slavery.
And I was put in a cage, and they put a snake in, and then...
They put a snake in your cage?
Yes, and they tried to hurt me with electric shock.
Her activism was so eye-catching, her stories were so shocking that money, I have to say, was given to her freely.
It's really an organization that I know where the money goes. I know it's well spent. It's very small, and I've known about it for a long time, so
it's great that you're speaking on behalf of it.
Somali Mom started bringing American and European people to Cambodia who wanted to do more than just help children by giving them money. These were people who really wanted to help them out. They wanted to adopt them so they could give them a better life.
I had never seen anything like that before. I was not prepared for what I saw.
Madam Jacobs left Cambodia with 2 children. She was holding her own child, and her husband was holding an adopted girl named Elizabeth.
Seeing families living in just absolute poverty by the river. People were saying this. National Geographic was saying this. But when you see it up close and personal like that, it was really devastating. Seeing all those kids, living like that.
The future parents later said that they were absolutely overwhelmed by the conditions in which the children had grown up and lived in when they saw what life in Cambodia looked like with their own eyes. The children were being abused and they didn't have any food, and so Americans were ready to give their money. They were prepared to adopt these children and get them away from the horror. Around the same time, Angelina Jolie adopted her first child from Cambodia.
And he was asleep. And, and I held him in my arms asleep, and then he opened his eyes and smiled.
This, of course, added to the popularity of the idea, although Jolie's decision wasn't connected to Somali mom, and she later adopted children from other countries. And all of this was before 2014, when Newsweek magazine published an article that said, well, what it basically said, Somali mom had made it all up. She had never been sold, and she had never been resold, and she had never been the victim of sexual slavery. And according to the article, she had been collecting millions of dollars thanks to meetings she had been having with rich and influential people around the world. It would appear that at the peak of her popularity, she had collected around $3 million, which were supposed to be charity donations, but which she kept for herself. But I don't think that's the point, because if it was only about money, then it wouldn't matter. The story is a lot more terrible. You remember that she brought Americans here who were ready and chomping at the bit to adopt Cambodian children. And so, Somali mom, followed by many other Cambodians, realized that they can make a lot of money out of Americans. Since they are prepared to pay $10 or $20 or sometimes $30,000 to adopt a Cambodian child, they needed a supply of children. So they bought Cambodian children to meet the need. And so, according to various sources, the children were bought for $2 each. And after that, they were resold to desperate American parents for $20,000 or $30,000 each.
Are actually not orphans.
My name is Sam Soy. I spent 7 years in an orphanage, but I'm not really an orphan.
Every day there are a lot of, foreigners, donors, sponsors who come to our orphanage.
In Cambodia, like mushrooms after the rain, one after the other, orphanages popped up.
In recent years, the number of actual orphans has gone down, but the number of orphanages has gone up nearly 75%.
It would seem that things are getting better, life's getting better and better and better, and yet the number of orphans is getting higher and higher. How can this be possible? Well, as always, the answer is money. It is always money. But when the adoption issue was shut down, things started getting worse. Children who could no longer be sold for adoption were being sold for sex.
In those years after the war, the Cambodian Civil War that lasted 30 years, there was total chaos. And of course, unpleasant things like that were happening, you know? It was a big scandal for the whole country and the whole world, because this is about children who were sold into slavery in other countries. This was an especially big problem in coastal towns like Sinakville, which is on the border with Vietnam. And over there were a lot of brothels and everything that comes along with that. Pedophiles from all over the world started coming, and they started settling there. And they always chose places where they didn't think that people would look. And what they were looking for was very little young children, and they would buy them from their parents and their families.
So, you're paying with your credit card, and there's a receipt that you get. Tiger beer, $4. A bunch of grapes, $5. And you can get a girl for 1 hour. You can do whatever you like. $3.
But here, there should be some kind of profound conclusion. But there won't be. Draw your own conclusions.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east.
Yeah, when we got here, it was all messed up. I mean, people like us couldn't get jobs because of our tattoos, and the newspapers were writing that the mafia is getting sent here from the US, ex-criminals are being freed from jails, all types of different crap.
Everyone thought that the criminals from America would form a gang in Cambodia, and they did stick together. But as it turned out, they didn't do it for crime.
A kid like me had the opportunity to go to school, and I became bad. And there were so many kids that can't go to school because they're poor. That's not fair.
This is part of the movie about the dance school, Tiny Toons, which was organized by KK. He teaches kids breakdancing, music, English, and how to work with computers. But it's not just a school. It's a place meant to keep kids off the streets. All the students are either from poor families or from the streets. Many don't just study, they also live here.
There's one kid, Lucky. His mom and dad got locked up, so
they went
got
to
in
jail.
trouble. Yeah, you know, so I'm just trying to be a role model for him. So I took him to school, feed him, take care of him, help him get by, and people always say, "Is that your dad?" And he says, "Yeah." And you know, I don't ask him to call me dad, but you know, I know he knows that I'm not his dad, but I want him to feel proud. It's like, that's my dad, so I didn't plan on doing anything major. I just wanted to help a couple of kids in my own life and in my own house. Yeah. And then I got started teaching them breakdancing, and it got out of control. It just got bigger and bigger.
And now Tiny Toons is one of the largest dance schools in Cambodia, and its graduates, many of whom are already adults, regularly win international competitions. And a few years ago they performed in America, but KK couldn't go with them because of the deportation. Hundreds of children sign up to come to these classes every single year. Not just to learn how to dance and read and write, but also to give themselves a real chance to change their lives.
You know, I stay home. I'm just chilling at home, you know, just by myself, and you know, really just feeling sorry for myself, and I don't want to do nothing. Then, you know, my mom said, like, go do something, you know? My dad said the same thing, you know? So I did. I went out and I, you know, volunteered and everything. I went to help people. I worked with drug users and stuff like that, you know, and it just wasn't paid. No money, but I just want to be part of something that I like. And I'm trying to make it up, you know? I'm trying to mentor and telling them this is wrong, you know, the only people that's going to jail is you guys. The only people that's going to go to the hospital is you guys. And the only people that's going to take you guys to these places is not me. I can take you to the hospital. We try to help both sides. And when the street gangs or pimps, they start a fight, I can't tear them up.
Today, the guys from Tiny Toons have another big battle. KK is watching from the side, and among the rappers and glamorous ladies are street kids, who probably also dream of going to the cypher one day. One of KK's students has just won a pretty big competition.
B-Boy Slate just won #1 place competition in Japan.
But for KK, it is a lot more important to have fresh blood. Guys, this is incredible. I mean, just think about it. Most of these guys here were born on the street. These guys basically had no hope in their lives, and looking back also didn't give them anything. Many of them lost their parents in the Civil War. Generally, no matter where they look, it's dark and no real hope for them. And I'm sure that none of them thought that one day this would be happening. But just look around me. I think that this is an absolutely incredible thing. KK and his team eventually won, but this is the last thing on his mind now. Everybody is celebrating except KK. And now, my friends, straight from the championships where one of the Tiny Toons just won, we're off to a funeral. A funeral of another Tiny Toons teenager. Because this is Cambodia, and this happens. We found out that the guy was found dead in the street, right in the middle of the competition.
And pray for him, rest in peace.
I really love them all, you know? That's all I pray for. I just want them to succeed in life and always be happy. So it's sad, you know? Breaks my heart, and yeah.
Can you tell us in more detail what happened to him?
There's no details at this stage. We don't know. No one knows what happened. It just happened, and there's nothing to find out.
So you don't have any suspects or anything?
Nothing. That's all I can say. He got robbed. It could happen to anyone. And he didn't have anything on him, so they killed him. No one knows.
So he was robbed?
Well, they took whatever they had from him, but we don't know if he crashed or he fell. What happened? Nobody knows. Nor will they know. They found him, and he's like dead.
Well, as we say, he died and that's it. It's just a matter of time. When's our turn, you know? Like, that's just life in Cambodia, period.
At Buddhist funerals, it's not customary to grieve.
Come, you gotta talk to the camera. Say hi, baby. Huh?
People are busy playing cards and trying to keep the conversation lighthearted. And only the mother cries near her son's body.
Be sad? No, we want to have a party. Be happy. You know, it's like kids, your family. You don't want to see any of them be sad. You want to see them happy. So that's what they believe in here. They want everybody to be happy.
So no crying at all at a funeral?
You can, but it's just, you know, all the time. They want everybody, but you know, women cry a lot and men cry. That's not saying they don't cry, but it's just that we want you to be happy, yeah? They don't want a thing where everybody's just sad, you know? But people cry and stop crying, so suck it up, you know what? Like that.
This has just been a night of incredible emotional swings. First, there's the hip-hop competition, dancing, winners, happiness, and then a funeral. At funerals, you have people having fun and people crying. In short, Cambodia, it is what it is.
Rack it up, I got a bit of the bank that make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, I'm up in the greenhouse. Ball it up, I'm with the game, we taking shots off the rebound.
So what do you think of this country? A country of incredible contrast, equal parts, greatness and beauty, and horror. Immense poverty and even more immense wealth, and the kindest people on the planet, and a human life that costs nothing. A country where a teacher can become a killer, and a gangster a teacher. This is an incredible country. If you would like to help Tiny Toons out without asking for anything in return, all the info is in the description, and KK might need an episode of his own. But for now, we'll keep moving on.
Sounded like a real nigga anthem. Charlie summer running, now she think a nigga anthem. Whoa, telling me she wanted me to hammer. Trying to get saved, baby, I am not the answer.
Really? It's how you carry yourself. It doesn't matter how hard a gang member you are. If you're an asshole, everywhere you go, you're gonna have drama. You're gonna get in trouble. If you carry yourself like a person and, you know, you respect people, people will respect you and start loving you, you know? For who you are, like, you know, all the Cambodian gangsters, they love me, man. They support me here always. They're like, anything I say, all's good. And the feeling it's respect. It's not coming out, beating people up and anything. No, man, it's just show them love, you know?